These magnificent black starlets, they were more than just actresses. They were icons of pride, the living embodiment of the beauty standards we once venerated and hungered to pursue. In those days, we gazed upon them and believed that such radiance was eternal, a sovereign power immortalized against the relentless passage of time. But have you ever stopped to wonder if, behind Hollywood's brilliant adoration, secrets of physical devastation were silently unfolding in the darkness? Was that beauty truly a gift of nature, or was it actually a blood debt, where they had to grit their teeth and trade their very flesh and their final gasping breaths just to earn the world's worship? Could you believe that a world-renowned superstar actually had to endure having industrial-grade machinery paint, laden with lead, sprayed directly onto her scalp every night just to maintain a brilliant silver hair color? While we admired her through her elegant veils, those chemicals were corroding and ulcerating her flesh in the shadows. Even more heart-wrenching, a powerful icon of the Broadway stage ended her life watching helplessly as they slowly amputated her body piece by piece in a hospital bed, simply because there was no money for treatment when illness struck. This is no Hollywood script. It is a record of the truth regarding the destruction of physical appearance and the ruthless abandonment that follows once the spotlight begins to flicker out. We invite you to join us as we turn back the pages of these old files to see clearly what truly occurred in this journey into the tear-stained corners of their private lives. The files on 17 famous black women who lost their beauty in the most tragic of ways. 1. Theresa Harris, the rose strangled by Hollywood and the rotting end of an invisible beauty. During the 1930s and 1940s, the so-called Golden Age of Hollywood, Theresa Harris possessed a radiance so striking it threatened to eclipse the era's leading white actresses. Yet this God-given beauty became a cruel barrier in her career. The major studios of the time viewed her features as a direct challenge to the racial hierarchy, and so they conspired to cage her in nameless maid roles, forcing her to shroud her natural nobility to serve as a mere backdrop for other stars. Behind the scenes lay a haunting secret: the agonizing physical transformation Theresa endured daily in the makeup chair. To make her fit the maid stereotype demanded by the era's prejudiced audiences, makeup artists forced her to apply a homemade slurry of walnut shells mixed with cheap industrial chemical solvents. In a rare and bitter interview in 1974, Theresa revealed that these toxins did more than cause excruciating itching. They silently devoured the cellular layers beneath her skin. She recounted how, after grueling days on set, her once flawless complexion turned parched and cracked, erupting into raw, red zones of infection from severe chemical allergies. A chilling incident occurred during the 1941 premiere of The Flame of New Orleans. A close friend later unmasked the truth. Just moments before stepping onto the red carpet, Theresa required emergency intervention from a private doctor to inject painkillers and apply a thick layer of antibiotic grease to stop the fluid from seeping through the open sores on her cheekbones. Beneath the blinding camera flashes that night, a keen eye could have seen the heavy mask of makeup beginning to fracture, struggling to conceal the profound damage wrought by the dyes. Archived records from a private clinic she frequented eventually confirmed a diagnosis of chronic epidermal inflammation due to industrial toxins, proving her beauty was being slowly eroded by poison for decades. Her passing in 1985 in the Inglewood district was the final somber note for a forgotten masterpiece. Theresa died in silence within her home, her body remaining undiscovered for several days. Because her system had absorbed so many toxic dyes over half a lifetime, the processes of aging and physical decay were accelerated in a macabre fashion. The skin that was once her pride was now withered and parched, clinging tightly to the bone, leaving behind no trace of the beauty that once made Hollywood tremble. She departed in profound solitude, a haunting testament to a vibrant spirit crushed by prejudice and poisonous chemicals until her very last breath. 2. Freda Payne, the scar of betrayal and the ill-fated gift from an obsessive despot. To the black audiences of the 1970s, Frida Payne was more than just the celebrated voice behind the hit Band of Gold. She was a shimmering icon of Motown glamour, possessing a rare and regal beauty. Yet, beneath the dazzling stage lights lay a toxic shadow, a romance poisoned by a powerful industry figure who sought to possess her like a private trophy. When he realized he could no longer control the heart of this radiant rose, he made a terminal decision to destroy her most precious asset, her beauty. The tragedy was set in motion by a gift disguised as a gesture of devotion, a bottle of high-end skin mist presented by her lover on the eve of a major performance. In a chilling reality, the contents had been replaced with a lethal concoction of diluted organic acid and specialized thickening solvents. This heartbreaking truth only surfaced in 1971 when a leaked report from Cedars-Sinai Hospital confirmed a terrifying diagnosis for Frida: second- and third-degree chemical burns causing severe damage to the branches of the 7th cranial nerve across the facial region. The horrific incident erupted at a high-end nightclub in New York. While Frida was soaring through the fiery melodies of soul, the infernal heat of the high-powered spotlights triggered the chemical reaction. A photographer for the Pittsburgh Courier captured a visceral moment that night. Frida shielding half her face as her skin began to blister and ooze under the glare of the stage lights. The photograph, titled "The Fall of an Angel," was aggressively suppressed by those in power. But those present that night could never erase the shivering image of Frida's face as she realized her flesh was quite literally melting away. The scars of this sinister conspiracy remained etched upon her face for the rest of her life. By the late 1970s, Jet magazine ran a piece subtly noting that Frida's smile had lost its natural grace, an allusion to the permanent facial contraction caused by chemical scarring. Though she sought out discreet plastic surgeries to salvage her appearance, the skin around her mouth and eyes remained in a state of terminal stiffness, turning her face into a silent indictment of betrayal. This was a beauty not defeated by time, but incinerated by human cruelty, leaving a lingering agony beneath the heavy stage makeup of a doomed diva. 3. Gloria Hendry, the silent tragedy behind the Bond girl's radiance and the cruel stroke of retribution. In 1973, Gloria Hendry etched her name into the annals of history as the first black woman to hold a position of power as a Bond girl, alongside Agent 007 in Live and Let Die. Yet, behind the frantic flashbulbs of the press lay a harrowing private ordeal. A chilling revelation by a close confidant in 1996 unmasked a buried scandal. Gloria had become entangled in a clandestine affair with a high-profile actor whose wife possessed an aristocratic pedigree and a merciless heart. The event that permanently incinerated Gloria's beauty took place in the autumn of 1975 within the obsidian shadows of a secluded Bel Air villa. During a fevered confrontation, the betrayed wife utilized a jagged shard from a vintage wine bottle to strike directly at Gloria's face. To safeguard the actor's reputation, a $1 million underground settlement was signed that very night, forcing Gloria to vanish from Hollywood as she was ushered to a discreet clinic for reconstructive skin grafting. It was within these sterile walls that the most tragic loss of beauty truly began. Clinical records unearthed years later revealed a sinister detail. The glass shard had been tainted with an anticoagulant chemical, causing the graft, taken from her thigh, to fail utterly. Instead of knitting together and reclaiming life, the transplanted flesh underwent a process of dry necrosis upon the open tissue. It was a visceral horror. The new skin refused to bond, turning a ghastly ashen gray and peeling away from her facial muscles, leaving behind deep, cavernous grooves and a network of jagged keloid scars. In late 1978, a relentless paparazzo from the National Enquirer surreptitiously trailed her to a meager medical outpost for the destitute. A sudden, violent flash of the camera bulb captured the terminal collapse of an icon. Gloria recoiled in shock, but the lens had already seized the image of her cheek, contracted, shriveled, and gray as cinders from years of starved blood supply. The tabloids subsequently unleashed the shocking headline, "Stolen Beauty," describing the face of the once radiant Bond girl as nothing more than a shroud of dead skin clinging loosely to the bone of her cheek. Expunged by the industry to erase every trace of the scandal, Gloria spent her remaining years in a hollow silence of destitution. She was often seen shrouded in thick scarves, wound tightly to conceal the dark, protruding keloids and the mangled contours of her face. Her passing marked a somber finale for a masterpiece of beauty snatched away by romantic intrigue and cold-blooded vengeance, leaving only the phantom of a lonely soul who was once the pride of black women on the world stage. 4. Barbara McNair, the Ivory Gem. Shattered and a death sentence for a haughty beauty. Barbara McNair, once celebrated as the Ivory Gem of the Blues, possessed an aristocratic beauty so pure it was likened to the rare black ivory of Hollywood. Yet her tragic journey of losing that beauty in the most harrowing way was a path of humiliating physical decay, rooted in blood debts to the underworld and the ruthless assault of disease. Her collapse began on a fateful night in 1972 when police raided the Sheraton Inn in New Jersey. Barbara was arrested in the main lobby on charges of heroin possession, a scandal that instantly shredded the pure maiden image she had so carefully cultivated. Though she was later acquitted, the public's gaze had permanently shifted. The long, sleepless nights at the police station and the searing humiliation began to gnaw at her delicate features, causing her face to slowly lose its natural radiance. In 1976, the tragedy reached a nadir when her husband, Rick Weiss, an underworld kingpin, was executed in a mob-style assassination at their Las Vegas villa. From that moment on, Barbara not only carried the agony of her husband's death, but also faced staggering blood debts to the mafia. To preserve her life and repay these debts, she fell into a silent slave contract. They forced her to maintain a haggard appearance, cast in roles as cheap addicts on screen to degrade her dignity before the public. However, the most horrific truth regarding Barbara's ruined beauty lay in medical records revealed in late 2006. She had been diagnosed with terminal throat cancer. This disease directly corroded her beauty from within in the most brutal manner imaginable. The journey of high-dose radiation therapy transformed the once elegant swan into a physical ruin. The radiation scorched the soft tissues of her neck and face, causing her skin to lose all elasticity, turning it ashen and thin as rotting parchment. The layers of fat beneath her skin vanished entirely due to medical wasting syndrome, unmasking the sharp ridges of her skull and her deformed, protruding cheekbones. In a bone-chilling moment captured by a local paparazzo in the summer of 1988 at a small suburban club, the audience was left paralyzed with shock. Barbara's face was as gray as cinders, her once brilliant eyes now sunken deep into black, lifeless sockets. The purple veins stood out starkly along her temples like cracks in a crumbling plaster statue. She passed away in 2007 in profound solitude in California, carrying a face so ravaged by illness and life's debts that it was no longer recognizable. It was the most naked and heartbreaking finale for an icon of beauty that had once reigned supreme. 5. Nell Carter, the Mask of Laughter, and the disintegrating end of a beauty besieged by addiction and disease. Nell Carter was once the radiant beacon of joy on NBC in the 1980s, a woman possessing a powerhouse voice and a smile capable of banishing any shadow. Yet, few knew that behind every boisterous laugh in the hit series Gimme a Break lay a visceral tragedy of the most harrowing loss of beauty, a physical erosion of the flesh that unfolded day by day, fueled by a brutal combination of cocaine and the severe complications of diabetes. This tragedy was not a sudden explosion, but a symphony of disintegration conducted in the darkest corners of the television studio. A veteran makeup artist who worked closely with her offered a haunting revelation in a 2010 memoir, recounting how every morning it took over 3 hours to reconstruct Nell's face. By then, her epidermis had lost all vitality, turning ashen and brittle like parchment paper left to soak in water for far too long. High-dose cocaine use had caused her facial capillaries to constrict chronically, starving the skin of nutrients and oxygen, leading to small, hidden pockets of necrosis that spread silently beneath a thick shroud of pink blush. The most dramatic turning point erupted in the summer of 1985 at the Burbank studios. Nell suddenly collapsed in the middle of a high-tension scene. In the ensuing chaos, as medical staff rushed in, a photographer from the National Enquirer seized a bone-chilling image that jolted the entertainment world. When her professional makeup was wiped away to place a respirator, Nell's true face was unmasked. It was gaunt and terrifying. Her nasal wings had shriveled and distorted from the corrosive effects of the toxins, and her skin revealed black, oozing ulcers, a terminal reality that stood in horrific contrast to the radiant, full-faced woman the public believed her to be. The devastation grew even more ruthless as type 2 diabetes attacked her already exhausted endocrine system. A clandestine medical report from Cedars-Sinai in 1992 recorded a diagnosis of irreversible facial capillary atrophy and tissue edema syndrome. Nell's body began to retain fluid in a grotesque fashion, transforming her once doll-like face into a stiff, bloated mass, as dull and gray as elephant hide. Her skin became so thin that one could see every purple vein spidering across the swollen flesh, making every televised smile in her later years a source of visible, agonizing physical strain. During her final months in Beverly Hills, Nell Carter lived as a ghost within her own home. A close neighbor testified in a later interview that she only dared to leave her house at midnight, shrouded in thick veils to conceal her entirely disfigured face and legs ravaged by diabetic necrosis. She passed away on the morning of January 23, 2003, in absolute solitude. When her son discovered her body on the kitchen floor, the beauty of an icon who had once lit up millions of homes was nothing more than a physical ruin beyond recognition. Her teeth gone, her face a twisted, shrunken mask. It was a bitter finale for a life of brilliance, crushed into cinders by the shadows of addiction, debt, and disease. 6. Denise Nicholas, The Frozen Sentence and the Decay of Beauty, Following a Message, written in blood. In the memories of Americans who grew up with the series Room 222 in the late 1960s, Denise Nicholas appeared as the very standard of elegance and pride. With a face as radiant as the morning sun, she was the crown jewel of black intellectual beauty on the television airwaves of that era. Yet, the tragedy that caused her to lose her beauty in the most harrowing way did not stem from the natural laws of aging. It was rooted in a bloody upheaval in the summer of 1980 in New York, an event that permanently deep-froze her radiant face into a mask of pure horror. It all began in July 1980 on a deserted street corner in Harlem. Michelle Nicholas, Denise's sister, was found tragically deceased inside a rental car. The jolting truth only surfaced later. Denise herself was the intended target of an underworld syndicate linked to Las Vegas casinos, where she was allegedly entangled in a high-risk, clandestine affair with a notorious kingpin. The death of her wretched sister was a ruthless message in blood delivered to her for daring to betray the order of the criminal underworld. The collapse of Denise's physical appearance took place in a raw, naked fashion immediately after that night of horror. A longtime makeup artist who worked with her on the series In the Heat of the Night in the early 1990s revealed the shivering reality in a private interview, stating that Denise's face seemed to have been permanently frozen following that upheaval. Her facial nerves were utterly paralyzed by the extreme psychological shock, causing every facial muscle to lose its natural flexibility. Her once plump, radiant skin rapidly lost its vitality, turning ashen like cinders and becoming thin as cellophane, clinging tightly to the jagged ridges of her facial structure. The clearest testament to this tragedy was a surreptitious photo of Denise Nicholas that appeared in Jet magazine in 1981, taken right at her sister's funeral. The moment the camera flash ignited, it permanently seized a beauty that had been murdered. Her once brilliant eyes were now sunken deep into dry, hollow sockets, surrounded by obsidian circles of gloom. Blue-purple veins began to spider across her cheekbones, looking no different than cracks in a decomposing plaster statue. A reporter at the scene noted that she stood there, her face as stiff as a death mask, void of expression. The divine beauty of yesteryear had been completely swallowed by fear. The medical consequences were even more catastrophic when she was diagnosed with traumatic facial atrophy. The entire layer of epidermal fat beneath her skin was annihilated, leaving her face gaunt and shriveled in a deformed fashion. Throughout her later years, whenever she appeared in public, Denise had to rely on heavy layers of makeup and complex lighting techniques to shroud the decay. Yet the terminal reality was that her beauty had died entirely on that night in 1980. She lived out her remaining years as a ghost of her former self, a heartbreaking living witness to how hatred and obsession can strip away a woman's beauty in the most ruthless and tragic manner imaginable. 7. Vonetta McGee, the Black Rose, fossilized by a merciless aesthetic mistake. Vonetta McGee was once the embodiment of intense vitality, a radiant black rose who dominated the blaxploitation cinema of the 1970s with a face likened to a divine masterpiece of sculpture. Yet, the tragedy that caused her to lose her beauty in the most harrowing way did not stem from a cinematic curse, but from the crushing pressure of a Hollywood that refused to accept the aging of black women. In a desperate bid to claw back the fading light of her fame in the late 1980s, Vonetta fell into a lethal trap, the clandestine pumping parties of Los Angeles. The horrific truth, endured for decades, was that Vonetta trusted the word of unlicensed street doctors, undergoing liquid silicone injections directly into her smile lines and cheekbones to maintain a youthful plumpness. At that time, the silicone utilized was often industrial-grade impurity, the kind intended for polishing machinery, never permitted for the human body. The betrayal of the flesh began silently but ruthlessly. Instead of dissolving, the liquid began to migrate haphazardly beneath the epidermal layers, weaving itself into her facial muscles and nerves. Her immune system reacted with a violent fury. According to a medical report revealed years later, Vonetta's body formed granulomas, tissue masses as hard as stone, to wall off the silicone droplets in self-defense. This process transformed her delicate features into a real-life horror play. Her cheekbones became jagged, swollen, a fiery red, and as rigid as a botched statue. When she attempted to seek surgery to scrape the substance away, the situation turned terminal. The silicone had fused with her facial tissues, meaning that to excise the poison was to carve away her own flesh. The reality of Vonetta's fossilizing beauty only became a media earthquake on a gala night in 1994. Amidst the industrial smiles and blinding flashes, a veteran paparazzo captured a death angle that unmasked the total devastation of time and chemicals. The lens seized a bone-chilling image. Beneath expensive foundation, lumpy, uneven tumors protruded from her cheeks, and her skin was stretched to such a distorted degree it warped her eyes. She looked less like a star and more like someone trapped behind a gray stone mask. The tabloid The Globe did not hesitate to run the headline, "The Fossilized Face of Thomasine," exposing the terminal disintegration of her beauty. In 1999, during an interview for an unfinished biography, Herman Bennett, the longtime makeup artist who had been with Vonetta since her golden age, tearfully revealed to writer Kevin Harewood the horrific physical reality she was forced to shroud. "Every time I touched her face to apply foundation, I felt as if I were touching a cold brick wall. It was no longer the structure of human skin. The silicone granulomas had turned her facial muscles into rigid slabs of stone. She had to grit her teeth against the throbbing agony of hidden infections that oozed fluid silently beneath her magnificent makeup. In her final years, Vanetta McGee lived in absolute exile from the camera. Her face was etched with the blackened, necrotic pits of keloid scars. Her passing in 2010 on a ventilator at a Berkeley hospital was the finale of a journey of agony. One of the most radiant beauties in cinema history died with a face completely fossilized by silicone and despair, a death sentence for a beauty murdered by the very ambition to hold on to vanity. 8. Jeanette Dubois, the fossilized smile and the epidermal destruction behind the ageless mask. There is a terminal reality that the cinematic capital of Hollywood has always sought to enter. The price of freezing time is sometimes paid in blood and flesh, and Jeanette Dubois stands as the most harrowing victim of that ambition. For over 40 years, to maintain the ageless image of her character Willona in the public eye, she transformed herself into a subject of agonizing medical experimentation. She guarded her birth year as a vital secret. But the true secret lay in an industrial chemical known as spirit gum, an extremely toxic theatrical adhesive she abused to stretch her entire facial skin and the corners of her eyes, anchoring them beneath her wig every single day. Behind the vibrant wardrobe of the character, Willona Woods lay a macabre makeup ritual that resembled a live surgery more than a beauty routine. A wardrobe assistant who worked on the Good Times set in the early 1980s offered a shivering revelation in an anonymous interview. Every morning, Jeanette would personally apply a thick layer of glue to both her temples. She would violently pull the skin backward until her eyes were distorted into a slanted shape, then use cloth tape to fix it firmly to her skull. I witnessed her scalp tearing and oozing blood from the extreme tension many times, but she would simply wipe it away in silence and don her wig as if nothing had happened. The naked truth of her disintegrating beauty finally erupted into a shocking scandal at the 2006 TV Land Awards. This was meant to be a moment of glory for the cast, had the searing heat from dozens of high-voltage studio lights not murdered her mask of lies. The audience at the scene and millions of viewers at home witnessed a sight straight out of a horror film. Under the intense temperature, the spirit gum that had accumulated for decades began to liquefy. A large section of Jeanette's forehead suddenly slid downward like melting plastic, unmasking the true skin beneath. Ashen, riddled with festering scars and blisters from chronic chemical burns. The next morning, the National Enquirer published a close-up photo with the ruthless headline, "Willona's mask is melting," officially dragging the tragedy of her beauty's destruction into the light. The devastation was so catastrophic that her entire natural collagen system had been annihilated by chemicals, causing the epidermis to detach from the underlying muscle tissue. In her final years, Jeanette Dubois' face became a massive open wound, hidden beneath thick layers of cosmetic plaster. Every time the lifting tapes were removed, sections of her skin, thin and brittle as rotting parchment, would tear away in large strips, exposing raw, weeping flesh. When she passed away suddenly in February 2020 in Glendale, it was said that the beauty of the Queen of Smiles had completely dissolved. Her face was nothing more than a shroud of shriveled, bark-like dead skin clinging loosely to necrotized cheekbones. A terminal finale for a life spent attempting to deceive time with theatrical poison. 9. Margaret Avery, the star of Shug Avery, and the tragedy of a face, shredded by a romantic poison. Have you ever wondered if the most lethal poison is not hidden within a goblet of wine, but rather rests in the very palm of the one you love most? For Margaret Avery, the radiance of her 1986 Oscar nomination should have been the golden ticket into the pantheon of goddesses following her legendary role as Shug Avery in The Color Purple. Yet few could have guessed that this pinnacle would become the start of a death sentence for her beauty. A meticulously staged execution orchestrated by the very man she shared her bed with. Julian, the dapper manager who was, in truth, a trump card for a Hollywood shadow syndicate that detested the rise of black artists. The secret of her ruined beauty lay within a magnificent silver jar of cream gifted to her by Julian in late 1986, which he claimed was a secret elixir from a French noble family to ensure she possessed the most radiant skin for the victory celebrations. In reality, that jar contained a concoction of high-strength corrosive acid blended with mercury levels far exceeding any medical safety limit. Archived records at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, file number 89-AX, leaked in 1989, permanently documented a ghastly medical secret that studio moguls spent millions to bury. This toxin had silently devoured Margaret's entire connective structure and subdermal collagen, leaving her face so thin and fragile that even a mild thermal impact could literally tear through the epidermal layers. The Winners' Gala of February 1987 at the Beverly Hilton was meant to be the coronation night of Shug Avery, but the flashbulbs that night were not celebrating beauty. They were serving as the executioner. Under the stifling heat of the high-intensity stage lights, a horrific chemical reaction erupted directly upon the superstar's face before the paralyzed gaze of hundreds of guests. Those who witnessed the night stood frozen in horror as they saw Margaret's facial skin suddenly fracture into deep, cavernous grooves like blade strikes, just as she attempted to offer her brightest smile to the crowd. Blood and foul tissue fluid seeped out, saturating her rosy makeup and creating a sight of pure horror in the midst of the most opulent surroundings. The most naked evidence of this tragedy lies not in the film reels destroyed by Hollywood power players, but in the remorseful confession of Sarah J., a veteran makeup artist, in her 1995 memoir, Shadows of the Stars. We saw the raw red flesh exposed right there on the stage. Her facial skin no longer clung to the bone. It slid downward like candle wax melting under an infernal heat. The silent scream in Margaret's eyes that night was the most visceral and haunting physical agony of my life. The following morning, the National Enquirer managed to release a blurred but terrifying photograph, capturing the moment her magnificent face was transformed into a bloody ruin, officially sealing the name Shug Avery into the list of beauties who lost their radiance in the most tragic way in history. The humiliation of being betrayed by her lover and the wreckage of her beauty caused her to collapse entirely, hiding away in the shadows for decades to conceal dark, protruding keloid scars and necrotic regions that would never heal. Margaret Avery is still alive today, but the divine beauty of the past has been permanently shredded by the cruel machinations of the underworld, a terminal finale where a masterpiece of nature was crushed into cinders by ambition and hatred at the very moment of its greatest brilliance. 10. Carol Speed, the obsession of Abby, and the tragedy of physical rot within the mire of oblivion. There is a haunting memory still whispered among those who once found themselves captivated by the dark cinema of the 1970s. That sometimes beauty itself becomes the cruelest trap of a lifetime. For Carol Speed, the radiant black rose who once dominated the screen in the horror film Abby, glory was as fleeting as a fever dream. As soon as the copyright lawsuits erupted and the film was scrubbed from theaters, Carol's name was simultaneously expunged from every Hollywood ledger. More heartbreaking still was the betrayal by the man she trusted most, an ambitious broker who exploited her in her moment of deepest despair, pushing her down the lightless path of addiction. He wanted that once divine beauty to wither, forcing her into a total dependency on the white death like a soulless shadow. The journey of her physical disintegration unfolded in silence within a dilapidated apartment in Muskogee, Oklahoma, the place she chose to evade the world's gaze for over 40 grueling years. High-dose toxins and chronic starvation silently drained the lifeblood from the great beauty from within. The skin that was once as smooth as honey grew parched and withered, turning a deathly ashen gray, becoming paper-thin and clinging tightly to the jagged ridges of her facial bones. A former neighbor who witnessed her final days recounted that Carol had personally shattered every mirror in her home, for she could no longer bear the sight of the haggard woman staring back, eyes bulging in horror because the protective pads of fat had completely vanished. She chose to retreat from a physical reality that was falling apart into the mire of absolute solitude. The terminal reality of her most tragic loss of beauty was only officially unmasked on January 14, 2022, when the stench of death began to overtake the modest apartment complex. When police breached the door of apartment 3B, they were confronted with a visceral reality that left them paralyzed in silence. The body of Carol Speed had lain there for over a month, abandoned by a world that had long since grown cold. Under the influence of the lingering heat in the sealed room and the state of a body neglected for far too long, the beauty that was once a source of pride had completely dissolved in the most ruthless biological sense. This was no longer the passing of a star. It was the humiliating dissolution of a masterpiece abandoned until nothing remained but cinders. That horrific secret lay in the revelation from a forensic officer who took part in the autopsy that day. A man who could not suppress his emotions as he gazed at her magnificent portrait still hanging on the mold-covered wall. We could not even determine her identity through her face anymore. The entire soft tissue of the facial region had rotted and crumbled away like old paper soaked in water for too long, falling apart in matted clumps against the ashen skull. The brilliant eyes in the old photograph were now just two soulless, hollow pits. The devastation of that beauty was a sight that would make anyone shiver. The local newspaper, the Muskogee Phoenix, ran only a brief blurb at the time, but the truth remains the saddest chronicle of the world's cruelty, a world that drained a woman's radiance and left her to rot in the ultimate cold of neglect. 11. Marva Whitney, the soul sister title and the tragedy of a beauty, exchanged for a body-draining contract. Have you ever wondered what truly lay hidden behind the fiery dance moves of the Queen of Soul, Marva Whitney, on the stages of 1967 to 1970? Those who witnessed that aura have surely not forgotten the sudden moment James Brown handpicked her to replace the legendary Vicki Anderson after a single night in Kansas. Whispers rippling through the artistic circles at the time unmasked a scandalous reality. Marva was not chosen simply for her talent, but was in truth a high-priced gift arranged by James Garrett, her husband and manager with a tyrannical soul, to soothe the volatile temper of James Brown and secure a lucrative performance contract. Heartbreakingly, Marva was not only a slave to the spotlight, but was also imprisoned within the controlling shackles of Garrett, a man who viewed his wife's beauty as a piece of merchandise to be squeezed dry for the favor of the Godfather of Soul. Matters worsened as James Brown demanded an impossible blazing energy throughout hundreds of touring nights. To meet this ruthless pressure of elimination and to shroud the agonizing joint pain of exhaustion, James Garrett secretly forced Marva into a chemical mortification of the flesh, compelling her to use high-concentration corticosteroids mixed with sedatives for more than 10 grueling years. The naked truth of this beauty destruction began to seep into the very fibers of the great star the moment she turned 30. The potent anti-inflammatory toxins silently annihilated her entire endocrine system, causing her once delicate face to suddenly bloat and deform in a terrifying manner, a terminal reality known in the industry as a steroid-deformed visage. The collagen supporting her flesh was hollowed out from within, leaving her skin as thin as a cicada's wing and so sensitive that even the lightest touch could cause deep obsidian bruises. Throughout her final performances, hidden behind a thick shroud of pink blush, was a face decaying day by day, with blue and purple veins spidering across it like a black web, devouring her final traces of radiance. This tragedy only truly revealed its most shivering truth on the frigid winter night of December 22, 2012, in a Kansas emergency room. After decades of being eroded by chemical venom and Garrett's bottomless greed, the entire structure of her flesh and bone had become utterly hollow. When the shimmering diva robes were finally cast aside, the reality left behind was a physical ruin that left even the most seasoned nurses in a state of shivering shock. The testimony from her final moments stands as the most visceral evidence of a beauty lost in the most tragic way. We no longer recognize the identity of the woman who was once a symbol of beauty. Her flesh was rotting and tearing away in matted clumps, like old paper soaked in water for far too long. It was no longer the form of a human being. The passing of Marva Whitney was a somber note ending a rose crushed into cinders by betrayal amidst the wreckage of a vanished glory. 12. Joyce Bryant, the silver goddess and the ghastly secret behind the toxic hair. The Miami Knights of the 1950s were so brilliant they deceived many into believing that vanity was eternal, and Joyce Bryant reigned as the undisputed queen of that darkness. Earning $3,500 a week at the prestigious Copa City nightclub, she was a monument of sensuality. Yet, behind the thunderous applause, hailing her as the Black Marilyn Monroe was a blood-soaked covenant Joyce signed with her own flesh. A scandalous secret, interred by management for decades, was that the magnificent silver crown upon her head was actually an industrial venom silently incinerating her beauty from within. Few would believe that her legendary platinum silver hair was created using radiator paint, intended for heavy machinery. Because no cosmetics of that era allowed a black artist to achieve such a metallic luster, Joyce was forced into a horrific ritual of physical mortification. The direct spraying of a lead-filled paint mixture and potent corrosive solvents onto her scalp. The truth of this murdered beauty only began to leak in the mid-1950s through the remorseful confession of Sarah L. and her closest confidant, who told the Afro-American, "Every night when she removed her veil, Joyce wept in agony. Her scalp was no longer human skin. It was rigid, peeling, and reeked of chemicals. Her hair fell out in clumps, accompanied by strips of raw, bleeding flesh clinging to the comb." By 1954, a close hairstylist tearfully recounted the reality behind the curtain when Joyce finally cast off her silver crown. Under the dressing room lights, the silver goddess was unmasked, revealing a mottled scalp stripped bare by chemical venom, red, raw, and oozing like a severe burn. Her facial skin lacked the flush of life, stained instead with the cold, blue-gray tint of lead, shriveled and brittle like a parched potato skin. Whenever she moved her facial muscles, the thick layers of theatrical makeup would fracture, exposing necrotic, ashen scars crawling along her temples like black centipedes devouring her beauty. In 1955, at the height of her glory, Joyce Bryant vanished into a convent, fleeing a physical reality that had completely rotted. She passed away in 2022 in absolute silence, taking with her the secret of a masterpiece that once shone like pure silver but ended in the terminal agony of poison. 13. Lynette McKee, the crushed mixed-race flower and beauty. Eroded by cocaine. Among the Hollywood insiders of the late 1980s, Lynette McKee was often spoken of not with praise, but with shivering sighs for a mixed-race flower broken from within. The most haunting rumors surrounded her toxic marriage to Leo Garrel, a union where love transformed into a protracted execution of the flesh. Secret revelations from household staff suggested that Leo was not merely a pathologically jealous husband, but the mastermind behind mummifying his wife's beauty with the venom of narcotics. Fearing her radiance would allow her to slip from his grasp, he turned their villa into a prison without bars, where Lynette was forced into a cocaine dependency to imprison her soul and rot her body, ensuring she could no longer shine before the world. This heart-wrenching reality grew even more horrific as anonymous reports exposed the ruthless abandonment by her own family just as Lynette began to wither. A longtime makeup artist recounted in a private interview that her own blood relatives callously pushed her into a vortex of debt through contracts rigged by her husband, stripping her of her home and wealth. Ultimately, the superstar faced the humiliating reality of homelessness, drifting through alleyways like an exiled ghost. The consecutive shocks of a tyrannical husband's betrayal and the turning of her family's back withdrew the last drops of her life force, shattering her spirit and causing the face that once made Hollywood tremble to fade in the most pathetic manner imaginable. Neighbors in her later place of seclusion never forgot the image of a physical wreck who occasionally appeared at sunset like a phantom. Those who witnessed Lonette at her lowest described a terrifying reality. Her skin was ashen and jaundiced from drug toxicity and severe malnutrition. The facial muscles had completely vanished, leaving the jagged ridges of her skull exposed. Her eyes were sunken deep into obsidian-hued sockets, frequently oozing a murky fluid and unable to focus. The skin around her mouth was contracted and shriveled, revealing stained, yellowed teeth. This was the most ruthless physical destruction. A living body rotting while the breath still lingered, a direct consequence of mental abuse and the extraction of her very last scent. 14. D.D. Warwick, the withered soul and a reality dissolved under the venom of alcohol, drugs, and betrayal. The pathetic finale of D.D. Warwick was not a medical secret, but a jolting family scandal unmasked by those who cleared away her physical remains in Essex County. Behind the legendary Warwick name lay a naked truth. Dee had been expunged from all privileges by the Warwick Houston family as soon as she sank into debt and the venom of crystal meth. Heartbreakingly, her own blood relatives coldly pushed her into the terminal reality of homelessness, leaving a superstar to die slowly in extreme destitution, where her beauty was squeezed until she was no longer recognizable as human. The dissolution of her flesh occurred in a visceral and agonizing fashion while her breath was still flickering. Decades of accumulated bitter alcohol had completely destroyed her internal organs, causing her skin to lose all color, turning it a jaundiced gray like old paper soaked in lead. Crystal meth created a horrific reality. Her entire lower jawbone was corroded by toxins until it crumbled away, causing her lower face to collapse entirely into a distorted, toothless mess. Her facial skin was now merely a thin membrane covered in black, oozing sores as the blood vessels beneath had rotted long ago. The most shivering reality was the moment of her passing in 2008 in absolute neglect. D.D. Warwick lay there with soulless eyes sunken into two dark pits, surrounded by patches of dry, dead tissue that exhaled the stench of a body falling apart piece by piece. All her teeth had fallen out due to the corrosive impact of toxins, exposing blackened, foul gums. Her passing was a bloody finale for a masterpiece crushed into cinders by addiction and the cold hearts of her kin in the middle of a glamorous cinematic capital, a beauty murdered by her own blood. Rosalind Cash, when the Iron Queen lost her beauty in the most tragic way. Within an isolated ward, the total truth regarding how Rosalind Cash lost her beauty in the most tragic way only erupted when the New York Amsterdam News published the testimony of Elias, her close butler of 20 years. Hollywood had executed her the moment the first black ulcers appeared on her legs. To cling to her final film contracts, her employers forced her to inject high-concentration painkillers directly into her veins just to stand before the lens. This chemical venom silently destroyed her vascular system from within, causing necrotic wounds to spread even while she was still working. The horrific reality of her physical disintegration was unmasked through Elias's account of her final days in 1995. On a hospital bed reeking of rotting flesh, the once powerful empress was now a crumbling physical ruin. Elias recounted having to suppress a surge of nausea as he watched her facial skin turn brittle and peel away in large strips, exposing raw, red flesh oozing murky fluid. The rounds of potent toxic infusions had scorched away the subdermal fat, causing her face to collapse entirely. Her ashen skin clung loosely to the jagged ridges of her skull. Her scalp was bare, every strand of hair gone, revealing a pale white head covered in foul-smelling ulcers and bulging purple veins along her temples. Her final moments occurred in the terrifying silence of a locked villa. Elias witnessed Rosalind lying there with eyes sunken into two dark, soulless pits, oozing a jaundiced fluid. Her lips were shriveled back, exposing gray-black gums and the ruined stumps of teeth corroded by chemical venom. Rosalind Cash died with a body so gaunt the bones protruded, her flesh rotting even as her heart still beat. The consequence of a masterpiece of beauty crushed into cinders by the greed and callousness of Hollywood. 16. Tamara Dobson, Cleopatra Jones, and the tragic loss of beauty in the solitude of a physical ruin. The most horrific secrets regarding the physical reality of Tamara Dobson were only unmasked through the account of Dano Dobson, her sister, concerning her final days at a Maryland Veterans Center. Once a symbol of absolute authority with her 6'2" height and supermodel face, Tamara was forgotten by Hollywood immediately after a horrific 1980 car accident. The jolting reality was that she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the very height of her glory. This disease, combined with untreated traumatic injuries due to financial destitution, directly transformed the great icon into a crumbling physical ruin. According to revelations from the nursing staff who provided her direct care, her final days in 2006 were a naked sentence upon her flesh. Tamara's entire muscular system had become paralyzed and completely atrophied. The body that was once her pride was twisted into a deformed mass in a wheelchair. Her joints were severely deformed, leaving her unable to move or stand straight. The disintegration of her beauty was clearly visible on the face that once dominated the screen. Her cheekbones had collapsed entirely due to the loss of fatty tissue, and her skin was ashen and shriveled, clinging tightly to the jagged ridges of her facial structure. Her once brilliant eyes were now two hollow pits, etched with the deep grooves of chronic agony. The moment she passed away, neglected by the entire entertainment world, was a humiliating reality. Tamara Dobson lay there, a body so gaunt the bones broke through the skin, her lips retracted to expose gums blackened by decades of high-dose toxic medications. Hollywood had squeezed the radiance out of Cleopatra Jones and then left her to rot in a dilapidated nursing home where the divine beauty of the past was nothing more than a ruin without an identity before being buried in the dust. 17. Mabel King, the witch Eveline, and the most tragic loss of beauty via progressive amputations on a hospital bed. The commanding beauty of the Queen of Smiles, Mabel King, dissolved in terminal agony through the harrowing revelations provided by her daughter and the medical team at Woodland Hills Hospital. Hollywood swiftly expunged Mabel's name the moment she lost the strength to stand upon the Broadway stage. The naked truth was unmasked within her final memoirs and the accounts of those who bore witness. Her physical form was annihilated by the complications of diabetes and total organ failure, a direct result of being unable to afford the life-saving treatment she so desperately needed. According to direct revelations from her daughter, Mabel's final days in 1999 were a literal journey of the knife. To halt the spread of black, putrid necrotic masses that were devouring her limbs, surgeons were forced to progressively amputate her feet, then her knees, and finally both legs entirely up to the hip. In a hospital bed saturated with the pungent reek of antiseptic and the stench of rotting flesh, the once great icon was reduced to an incomplete ruin. Her once radiant eyes grew clouded and entirely blind, staring out as two dull, hollow pits. As her system failed, her skin turned a deathly ashen gray, shriveled and clinging tightly to her crumbling skeletal frame. Mabel King passed away with a body exhausted and decaying, even as her heart still beat. A bloody finale for a masterpiece of beauty crushed into dust by disease and the cold callousness of the world. Our journey through the lives of 17 Black women, once the pride and crowning jewel of an entire generation, reaches its end here. What we have witnessed together were no glamorous film reels, but the naked, unmasked truth of how the radiance of a goddess was ruthlessly stripped away behind the fading glow of the spotlight. They did not depart to the echoes of an audience's applause. Instead, their stories concluded amidst the suffocating reek of antiseptic and the terminal solitude of an isolated hospital bed. If these chronicles of truth have moved your heart or stirred your nostalgia, please like and subscribe to our channel to support our mission. And do not forget to awaken the notification bell, ensuring you never miss the haunting chapters yet to come.